Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. I must have drifted off. The sheets wrapped around my hands as they were most times I slept. Of my dreams, all I can remember is the face of Frankie as his body shredded before my eyes. How long would I be having this dream? Would it ever end? I checked my vital signs and saw I was well within safety margins. I glanced at the open screens and realized I was still watching the street before the red square and the tea room waiter station. Not good. It was never a good idea to leave the connection to a target active when you weren't using it. I was taking too many risks. My anti-tracking systems were the best I could come up with. What if there was someone out there better than me? That is another truth of the hackerverse. There was always someone better, someone sharper, someone luckier. If someone thought I might be in the red square switch, I'd just given them all the luck they'd ever need. I couldn't think about that. If I let the fear grow, I'd never find Nona. I was done with the red square. What I wanted wasn't there. What I wanted was at the nesting doll. I hopped network nodes near the red square. One of them had to be the nesting doll. After an hour of frustration, I gave up. The nesting doll, unlike every other building on the block, had no network access. How was that possible? The police required access to security feeds of every building in the city. There had to be a network there. I pulled up the public listing of the nesting doll again. The nesting doll was a Class 3 bordello. They were licensed for hourly rentals, alcohol services to the rooms, and to have no more than 100 rooms in operation at a time. That didn't seem right. The building plan showed over 400 rooms in the building. Giving over one for each worker as well as one for the customers only used half the space. Something else must be going on over there. Maybe the nesting doll had more workers than rooms to give the girls nights off, which, knowing Leo's family, sounded far-fetched. Being a licensed bordello, there were other sources of public information available. City Center required that all licensed sex workers have certificates of cleanliness. Those certificates had to be available for anyone to see. I'm anyone, and I could see. I filtered the results for the nesting doll and found over 150 active certificates. I guess Leo wasn't quite the asshole I thought he was. His working girls got a night off, or he was a jerk. And there were really 150 rooms for the customers and a like number for staff, which left over 100 rooms unaccounted for. Mysteries are fun, but this wasn't getting me any closer to finding Nona. Or was it? Checking the regulations for bordellos, I discovered an interesting bit of trivia. Unlike all other public space cameras in the city, the cameras in a bordello had to record all public space activities, but the data was to be kept private, to be made available for remote viewing by an officer only after a subpoena was electronically submitted to the data management company. In this case, Karina Data Hosting. The name felt familiar, like a bad tooth your tongue can't seem to avoid. Karina, the name was on the tip of my tongue. I opened a public information search. The first reference was to a movie starring Sid Hopper from last year. I remembered that one, mainly for its horrible mock Russian accent. Never let an Australian attempt a Russian accent. It's not pretty. I laid back and laughed. The movie was Anna Karina. Karina data hosting. Moss Banna was at the beck and call of Leo. I'd found her. I'd just found a connection to the bane of BTS security. The mysterious Moss Banna had as good as given me her address. She, or more likely a server rented in a region which valued privacy for a price, Scandinavia or Switzerland were good guesses, though it could have easily been a data haven along the Ivory Coast, was receiving the camera and data feeds from the nesting doll. That had to be what the encrypted pipeline through the red square switch was carrying. It couldn't be anything else. It could be, to be honest, but I didn't want to think that I was up against another dead end. I set up a data split on the encrypted packets, which my Pemapono believed were video feeds. The quantity of data alone was enough to suggest several hundred cameras gathering data no one ever really wanted to know was recorded. Could this security loophole be another way Leo made friends and influenced people? While brothels were legal and licensed in the city, that didn't mean everyone saw them as right and proper. A month couldn't pass without some high moral figure, clergy member or politician, being caught on video entering a licensed bordello. No matter how many times it happened, there was always a vocal minority who screamed for the blood of the offender. How much better would it be for Leo if he had footage from inside the establishment? Knowing Leo, the cameras weren't restricted to the hallways and bar. He probably had them in the rooms as well. I was counting on this, praying for his sins to extend into a realm few would ever dream of exploiting. I had the Opemapo isolated data stream from the fire hose of data. This was possible because whoever set up the system hadn't really cared. If I was right, Moss Banna had done the work under duress, slopping through the work. Maybe Moss Banna didn't like Leo either. What did he have on her? If I had designed the data pipeline for the nesting doll, what I was doing would not have been possible. I would have encrypted the individual data streams from the cameras, which is what Moss Banna had done, but I would have bundled the entire mess into a single encrypted pipeline. There would have been no way to isolate the individual feeds from the pipe. What Moss Banna had done was just sloppy. Maybe she thought the work was beneath her, or that as what she was doing was a legitimate process, there wasn't any reason to do more than the minimum required by law. Either way, she made my job much easier. All I had to do was run a single stream through my Pemapono and run a standard decryption key detection routine on the data. Basically, the cameras all sent data with packet headers. My system grabbed the first few thousand bits of a packet and attempted to extract the header information. While the header was encrypted with the video data, in most off-the-shelf encryption routines, the header data was posted before the video data. It contained such tidbits as time, camera type, and any identification which the installer felt like adding as text. It was easier for decryption technology to deal with than video. It was a gamble. If I had been installing the cameras, the header would have been buried somewhere in the middle of the data stream. I hope Moss Banna had cared as much about this detail as she had about the rest of the pipeline. A few minutes later, I was rewarded with confirmation of my view of Moss Banna's workmanship on this project. She hadn't cared. She had left the data stream to factory standard, no scrambling of header locations, no non-standard encryption key. She had done nothing more than set up a data pipeline. I opened a window to check the results of my decryption and was rewarded with a view I have no desire to repeat. Let me just say, some things are best kept behind closed doors and not recorded. That first view confirmed my views about the levels to which Leo would sink. Not only did he own a brothel, which his sister ran, but he recorded everything that happened. His camera placement violated every standard of privacy which still existed in the city. I had the Opemapo run an analysis of the video feeds, hoping there was something in a header to aid my navigation of the system. I needed a clue. Unlike the camera system of the Red Square and the neighborhood around Ivanova's, I wasn't inside the control system. I was standing in the path of a fire hose of data, hoping to find the drops I needed. And this I was lucky. Whoever had set up the cameras had tagged them by floor, room, and angle. With the header data, it was possible for the Opemapo to create a map of the camera array. Without that map, I never would have been able to navigate the system. There were over 2,000 camera feeds in the nesting doll, I checked a room with a tag for the second floor and found there was a camera for each wall, as well as for the ceiling and what appeared to be a headboard camera as well. What was Leo doing here? Making cheap porn? Was there a market for live feeds of people humping like chimpanzees? If there was, I am sure Leo knew how to find them. Lucky for me, the room I examined was unoccupied. I flipped through the angles. There was a camera, which must have been above the door, which gave a view of the bed and the window above it. Through the window, I was able to make out a portion of the sign over the door of the red square. I pulled up the official city map of the nesting doll as well as a property plot of the street around the building. I studied the maps, overlaying them in my head. From the angle, it appeared I was in room 205 on the building plans. I checked the header. The camera was number 205. This would make it easier. Just to be sure, I switched to 206, which according to the plans was across the hall. Luckily, this room was vacant as well. I found the window view camera. Everything was very standardized. I stared at a bit of window I could barely make out in the frame. There should be an alley visible running east. I thought I made out a bit of brick, but the amount of sunlight streaming through the window made it hard to be sure. What I was sure of was that the window faced east. Nothing appeared to block its view of the sun. If anything screamed alley, it was the idea of a second-story window being able to see the morning sun. Satisfied that the camera designations corresponded to the city plans, I shifted to the cameras looking for the ones on the 35th floor. There were only 3. I flipped through them. They all showed views of hallways and elevators. This must be Leo's private residence. Probably also his sister Anna and his nephew David's place as well. Nice that they had privacy when no one else in the nesting doll had any at all. In a building where the toilets had cameras in them, the 35th floor was an oasis free of intrusion, except the minimum insurance companies required. I tried the cameras on the 34th floor. The rooms were empty, not just vacant of people. In many there were a few boxes or stacks of ladders and scaffolding, but none were set up for occupation. I checked out the 33rd floor, more empty rooms, though these appeared to be in use as warehouse space. Racks and shelving blocked many of the cameras. Cases of wine, vodka, smoked fish, and caviar blocked too many cameras. I was about to give up on 33 when my anal tendencies forced me to work my way through the last 3 rooms. It was in the second to the last room that I found Nona. The room was small and Spartan. A bed, a bookshelf filled with decaying real books, and a small table set with the remnants of the breakfast I watched being ordered at the Red Square. A lithe female form, all muscle and tension, a runner's body with a rough crew cut and sports bra and panties moved through the motions of an aerobic workout. It wasn't the type of workout you see through the windows of a health club in Park Terrace. There was no softness to the workout. It was violent, aggressive. It was what one expected from a footballer or a boxer. All muscles pushed to their limits. She bounced from foot to foot in a warm-up I'd last seen at a Roanoke Park Rangers practice. She dropped to the floor, threw back her legs, and caught herself in a push-up position. She rattled off 100 fast push-ups before rolling onto her back and doing a like number of stomach crunches. I shifted angles and verified what my body knew. It was Nona. She was alive, and as she rolled over, caught herself in a push-up stance before throwing herself back onto her feet with all the power of a gymnast, I realized she was spoiling for a fight. Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware Hijacked and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, Amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware Hijacked and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.